Welcome to
Welcome to
the
the
Endzone.
Endzone.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Ray. And today we're going to be talking about on this podcast how our week one went and some takeaways we had from week one. And we're also going to just talk about how we're going to prepare for week two and maybe some dark horse candidates that we have for the upcoming week, some under the radar guys that may help your team. So if you want to start out, how did your fantasy week go?
Do I have to talk about it? My week one was not that good. I had Jamar Chase. I knew he was a question mark going in, hoping he was going to play. So it looked like Friday he was going to be in. Saturday, all of a sudden he's feeling sick. I think he was just sick from not getting that contract done. So he did show up on Sunday, but he was a little lackluster for me. You know, we knew how the Chiefs performed on Thursday night, so that was, Mahomes was okay. I mean, only 16 points, wasn't the greatest performance, but it's week one, kind of shaking off some of the rust from the preseason and getting back into game shape.
Yeah.
McCaffrey was another one that hurt me. You know, had McCaffrey in, thinking he's going to play. I'm hosting an open house, and then this guy tells me, grab Mason, McCaffrey's out. I'm like, oh, shoot, what do I do? So then what do? I go grab Mason, put him in. Thankfully, he got me 21 points, but it was a little too late. I lost by 6. So
Yeah.
that's how my week one went. How did yours go?
Not the greatest either, but I'm not really too discouraged. Week one's usually like I like to feel out my team, see how the roster's shaping up and whatnot. So I went and started Justin Fields this week. I already was getting the start. Historically, he was good against the Falcons, but he looked good in real life, which was that was nice to see. But it just didn't translate to a fantasy perspective. So he didn't score any touchdowns, unfortunately. But I think going into week two, he should be looking a little better against the Broncos. And Jonathan Taylor had a bit of a down week for me too. I thought he was going to run a little better against that Texans off or defense, but the offense they were airing it out pretty decent, and it seems like they had a pretty decent game plan to stop Taylor a bit. But our highest scorer of the week ended up being a man named Corey. His team's name's Charles Pellegrosso, and so congrats to you, Corey, on that. So he ended up with 148.32 points. He had Lamar Jackson, Drake London, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, who just had a crazy game. Kyron Williams, who looks like he's not going anywhere. Kyle Pitts, Rashad White, Kaimi Fairbairn, Seattle defense. So congrats to you, my man.
Yeah, Corey did he was on a early on in the league when we first started. He was towards the top, kind of hit a little skid the last few years, and it's nice to see him bouncing back.
Yeah.
So kudos to him for starting off that week one and with a bang. So that was really good.
Yeah. Having Saquon, he just looked tremendous, and we'll kind of just talk about some takeaways we had. So, did you have any key takeaways from the first week?
So yeah, my week one key takeaways. I was unfortunately kind of tied up on Sunday, so I didn't get to watch a whole lot. But from the highlights that I was seeing, it was kind of nice to see Anthony Richardson come back, have a good week. That was, I'm too bad you didn't start him, but I understand the Fields. That's your guy, that's your keeper, so you got to roll with your horse. I felt like seeing James Conner do his thing was nice. Alan Lazard was another one that kind of, had a good reconnection with Aaron Rodgers, and to kind of see him in that Jets uniform and on Monday night. So that was pretty good. What about you? What were you seeing out there?
Well, just kind of going game by game. Obviously, with the Chiefs, Rashee Rice just looked like he's ready to take that alpha wide receiver role. So whoever got him in fantasy this year, I think you got yourself a real gem in the later rounds. On the other side of the ball, with the Ravens, looked like Isaiah Likely obviously exploded, and on the Instagram segment, that was actually my sleeper guy for that game. So he just really looked like he's going to be a staple of the offense this year. I'm gonna pause it. A staple of the offense this year. And going into Friday, obviously Saquon Barkley looks like he's going to be tremendous with that Philly offense. He's finally got a good O line, and just playmakers around him outside of just himself. So takes a bit off him with the box being stacked like it was when he was on the Giants. You got a quarterback that could move the ball down the field too. So that looked good. Unfortunately for the Packers, Jordan Love got hurt, but it looks like he won't be out for too long, which is good for them. I have the Colts beating them week 2, so if you guys play Survivor football, that might be a solid pick there, or defense even. But Jaden Reed, like I was saying before our draft, I think he's the most talented receiver on the receiving corps, so I think he's in for a good year. And some other takeaways I had just kind of looking at this list of games here. So
Well, it's kind of unfortunate that Nakua got hurt.
Yeah,
You know,
Nakua.
having a tremendous, last year was nice, and then, I mean, it benefits Cooper Cup, but it's kind of like the trade off. Like Cooper went down last year, and Nakua really stepped up and shined,
Yeah.
and then this year it's unfortunate to see him go down week one. So hopefully, it's not a long term thing.
Yeah, I think Cooper Cup though. I mean, with the Nakua injury, he's out for the next few weeks. I think he's in for a tremendous year.
Mm-hmm.
Like his old fantasy days. Another note I had too was Jamison Williams finally broke out for the Lions. It seems like so. I hope he stays healthy this year and can actually uh, just keep consistency and get that finally breakout that everyone's been waiting for. Because I mean, he's a tremendous talent and deep
Mm-hmm.
threat. So I had my fiance. I told her I was like, well, if you're gonna snag someone off waivers, Jameson Williams should be a good look, and she ended up doing it. So uh, I think he looked great. Another guy I liked a lot too was J.K. Dobbins. He was a great surprise, and I actually have him on my fantasy team, so it makes me feel a little bit better about my running back situation going forward. Seeing J.K. just looking like his old self,
Yeah.
and Jim Harbaugh is a great coach, so it's nice to see Justin Herbert too. I think they're going to be a surprising team this year as well.
Yeah,
So
it's nice to see JK. I mean, losing Austin Eckler is kind of a big blow. They
yeah,
lost a lot on that offense for the Chargers, but JK is a nice piece to have as long as he can stay healthy. Same thing with Jamison Williams. As long as he can stay healthy, those are the key factors. I mean, it's a physical game. Longevity is always the key, right? How do you preserve your body? How do you keep yourself in game shape week in and week out? We're seeing it right now with McCaffrey. I mean, you got an Achilles and calf
yeah,
strain. It's all kind of connected.
yeah.
I
That was
went
a surprise, man.
Yeah, so I went through that myself, and that's a little challenging. I still, even to this day, I've recovered, but I still have issues, and so hopefully that's not something too crazy. I had that happen with him in the first couple of seasons, and then he had a great year last year, so I was kind of hoping to repeat that, but it's still early. It's only week one. I'm not panicking yet. Do got some good pieces in place. Having Mason as his backup, that was key.
Yeah.
So if any of the, if he's available in any of your leagues, especially if you got a 12-team league,
Oh yeah.
I would definitely snatch him up because McCaffrey, this injury, I don't know how long it's going to last. And then I was kind of hoping Chase, with T Higgins being out, was going to do a little bit better. So that didn't happen. So now I'm kind of wondering maybe if I need a pivot to Tank Dell.
Yeah,
So
maybe he looked pretty good in his action back too. Um, I liked too. I mean, the Dolphins. We came back week one. That was tremendous.
mm-hmm.
Uh, it was nice to see Tua. So one thing that stood out to me was like how I heard an interview where he or not post game, but mid game, uh, rallied his guys. That we were down, and he held everybody accountable. So it's like we really need to see that leadership all season from him. And I feel like we beat a playoff team, which
Mm-hmm.
was great too. So hopefully this is a sign of things to come for the season. I think the big test will be this week 2 matchup against Buffalo. So I'm very excited to see that game tomorrow night. I'm going to be, all over it and really watching closely. Hopefully, my guy Devon Acham will play too. But kind of gets me
Yeah.
into, our next segment. Going into week 2, how are you going to prep for the week, and what are you looking out for?
Yeah. So I'm just still watching those injury reports. I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of weary about Chase going into week two still, because, he wants to get paid. I
Yeah,
understand it. He's worth it. He wants a contract bigger than Justin Jefferson. So I hope they take care of him and pay him and get him right. I just think that thing's kind of lingering over his head, and I think he wants to get past it so he can just move on. Because realistically, like why is he gonna put himself out there and run the risk of long term injury if he's not
yeah,
getting that contract
that's
that
a
he's
good
looking
point.
for? Because then his value goes down. So he doesn't want to devalue himself, but he still wants to contribute to the team.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a big part of it. Preserving that health for the contract, and obviously the market keeps raising up. So if he ended up waiting anyways, he might still get paid out. But that's a great point too. Of maybe what if he does get injured, ruins his value.
yeah.
Um, so that's a good point.
Yeah.
Any matchups you like this week or
Well, I got Houston's my backup defense compared to Miami. What Josh Allen is doing in Buffalo is insane. I mean, they
yeah,
lost a lot of pieces as well, and they kind of revamped that offense. And that guy
he's still doing it.
he just still does that thing. So I'm a little nervous about my Miami defense and the Dolphins this weekend. I think this is a great early season matchup for that AFC East. I think it's going to come down to the Bills and the Dolphins. The Jets kind of got humbled a little bit in San Francisco, and so I'm kind of thinking that's probably going to kind of be the trend. They're probably going to be around a 500 team, so I think it's going to be Miami
Yeah,
and Buffalo duking it out again.
totally agree. I mean, it's I feel like the Bills are the Dolphins' kryptonite. So I mean, hopefully this season's a little different, especially after Tua's Week 1 comeback against the Jaguars. He seemed pretty fired up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little nervous because too, like I was saying, Devon Achan, a little injured. We're not gonna have Mostert this game, but it's gonna be very exciting, and I'm gonna be just laser focused on that game tomorrow night. So I'm super stoked. And then for me personally, I mean, yeah, obviously Dolphins Bills is a big watch for me. Another one I like this week is going to be the Chiefs and the Bengals. So I'm curious to see how Joe Burrow bounces back this week. One thing about Burrow is he's historically he starts slow. So hopefully, you got two elite quarterbacks again, kind of like Mahomes, Lamar, where it could be a high scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Bengals are gonna have to throw the ball to keep up with that Chiefs offense. I mean, there's no slowing them down really, especially once they get Hollywood Brown back. I wonder if he's coming back this week actually, but I mean that Chiefs offense still looking stellar. So
Yeah, Worthy's been a nice little find for them as well. I mean, that speedster, that's kind of seems to be the trend right now. Like Jamison Williams, Worthy, Reed up in Green Bay, and it's like all these little fast guys are just taking the lids off of defenses and opening things up.
yeah,
Even just those little end arounds, these guys are taking it to the house.
absolutely. I think another underrated matchup this week too, in terms of scoring, is going to be the Giants and the Commanders. Jaden Daniels looked really good week 1. I mean, fantasy wise, passing wise, obviously it's his first game as a rookie, so could have been better. But the rushing was elite. Something that we
Mm-hmm.
saw when he was at LSU was just him carving defenses with his legs. So it was nice to see him do that. And I think, Giants, yeah, they had a really bad week 1, but, divisional game, I think they kind of get back on track here. So coming into this week, I have Malik Neighbors on my roster, and I'm going to be putting him in my lineup again. I think this is finally the week where, he shows himself who he
Mm-hmm.
really is. Daniel Jones historically does pretty solid against the Commanders too, so I think it's underrated, high scoring matchup for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm kind of my fantasy matchup this week. I'm just trying to see what the best options are. And then kind of looking at the games. I feel like the Niners are going to keep rolling.
Yeah,
I think the Detroit game is going to be pretty interesting to see what happens there. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of. It's so early in the season. It's hard to like really know who some of these teams are.
yeah,
I kind of got snake bit in Survivor myself because I took Cincinnati week 1 thinking they're going to come out guns blazing, and
beat
that
the
didn't
Patriots.
happen.
Yeah,
Patriots beat them, so I'm thinking, shoot, man. My initial thought was pick everybody against the Patriots, but now I'm like,
I think the Panthers are the pick that this year for that. So
yeah, Panthers are going to be struggling for sure. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm excited for this weekend. It's going to be nice. It's your birthday, so we're going to be watching some football, checking out the red zone,
yeah,
and then
would be nice.
enjoying some pizza, some wings, and some
Yep.
brewskis, and so that'll be fun. But yeah, and getting back to Detroit's matchup against Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield and the ageless wonder Mike Evans, man, that guy, that guy every season
Yeah,
just seems to fly under the radar and just be super productive. He's always making big catches, big touchdowns.
it's crazy.
And Baker Mayfield, what he's doing in Tampa Bay, I really like that. So I'm excited to see that Detroit and Tampa Bay game this week.
Yeah, it's nice for both those guys. I mean, Mike Evans just he's an underrated Hall of Famer. Like he doesn't get talked about enough and enough credit. I mean, the guy's consistent every year, 1,000 yards each season. So I think as long as he stays healthy this year too, we see that again. And Baker Mayfield too, just tremendous job showing that it wasn't just the offensive coordinator last year that helped him out,
Mm-hmm.
that he could stay consistent. I mean, he looked tremendous this first week. So yeah, it'll be an exciting matchup. And now we can kind of talk about too, like how we're gonna prepare going into this next week for our fantasy perspectives. So what I like to do is obviously just assess how my guys were used week 1. So I mean, obviously, I feel like all my guys got pretty good volume. And I like to also just see the matchup. So one thing, like if you're looking at running backs, is that team most likely going to be ahead and is it a good run defense or a bad run defense? So for me, I feel pretty dang good about Jonathan Taylor going into this week 2
Mm-hmm.
matchup. Jordan Love's not most likely not going to play. Uh, I think Colts have that game, and so I think Jonathan Taylor's going to get some usage there. And obviously, we saw Saquon Barkley just look insane against that Green Bay defense.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also really excited about. I'm going to be rolling with Justin Fields again this week 2. Obviously, he was my keeper, so sticking with it. He won me a championship last year, and I think going into this week 2 matchup, it should be more. Week 1 was him game manager. He was the backup
Mm-hmm.
going into it, so they had to adjust last minute, put him in. So it was more game management, which he did really well. But I think this week 2, with the game plan tailored more towards him, we're going to see that more electric Justin Fields that we've been seeing these past few years when he's elite as a fantasy option.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that starts with Denver. He did really good against them last year, so I think it
Yeah.
should be another solid game for him. So I feel really good going into this week, and like I was mentioning too, Malik Neighbors. I got Justin Jefferson, who I mean Sam Darnold looks solid week 1, so I'm like, keep that up, please. Um, but yeah, so I feel pretty confident going into week 2 for sure with
Yeah,
my squad.
that's good. Yeah, so kind of you talked about running backs. Kind of what I do for receivers is a big thing for me is targets. They might not have the number of catches, but if they're getting the looks, they're obviously getting the opportunities. That's kind of how I look at my receivers and how if I'm gonna pick up a free agent or if guy's kind of been down historically, if he's been productive, chances are he's gonna bounce back.
Yeah, kind of like
So
Amon Ross St. Brown week 1. Like,
yeah, that's
I'm
a
sure
great
he'll be all right.
example. Yeah, so he'll be just fine. And so that's kind of how I look at my things. The Chase, I hope they get that contract done sooner than later, but it sounds like it
Yeah,
might drag on a little bit through the season. So I'm still kind of iffy if I want to roll with him. Kind of what CJ Stroud does, and Tank Dell's kind of been his guy, especially last year until he got hurt. I'm thinking I might just kind of lean and just rest up Chase, and of course if I do that, he's probably going to pop off. So that's the chance you take, right? Gotta love fantasy.
yeah,
But yeah, so that's kind of my strategy. Quarterbacks. I mean, there's always those few that are super elite, and then you have guys like Baker Mayfield that'll just run and be productive. Getting mid 20s, to maybe low 30s, week to week. So guy likes to air it out. He's a baller, and what he's doing in Tampa Bay has been nice. So,
that's for sure.
but yeah, I understand the Justin Fields dilemma you got because Richardson, man, after that week 1 performance. But I definitely get where you're
Yeah,
going, and you have George Pickens, so that's a good pairing for you.
yeah, that's the pairing. I'm also thinking, I'm like, okay, well, Fields, they ran him a ton week 1 against that tough Falcons defense. Uh, and that was, like I was saying, game plan not tailored to him. So, I mean, the kid's got so much talent. I'm a big Justin Fields believer, so I feel like, he's accurate with the ball. He's good
Mm-hmm.
with his legs. So I kind of give him the edge. This week for me personally, I mean, obviously it's a hot take. Most people are going to say Richardson, Jane Daniels. Um, but for me, I think Richardson, I think the Colts are just going to handle business. So I don't know if there's going to be a ton of volume there. I think it's going to be more Jonathan Taylor. I mean, I'm sure Richardson will still score like 20 points, but when it comes to quarterbacks, I like the guys like, they give me a chance to just score a crazy amount of points.
Mm-hmm.
And something Justin Fields does, obviously Richardson does this too, but Fields likes to air the ball out, and he breaks those long runs that are just really highlight reel tapes.
Mm-hmm.
So and for me, it's like the situation going from Chicago to Pittsburgh. It's just so much better, and you got a way better coach in Mike Tomlin than Matt Eberflus. So
Yeah.
um, that's why I'm rolling with him, especially it's early on. So I'm rolling with him early just to get a feel for my team, like I'm saying, and see if he's going to be a consistent uh, quarterback for me this year, or if I just have to pivot to my other guys, which I'm totally comfortable with too. And then some defenses we like this week too. We were talking a bit about how we think the Texans defense is really going to show out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they got a tremendous young defense, and the matchup they have this week is going to be really solid. So the matchup they have this week against the Bears is going to be really solid. I mean, Caleb Williams struggled tremendously
Yeah.
against that Titans defense, and we've been saying it all offseason too. Like, it's nothing against Caleb Williams. We like the guy and we hope he succeeds. It's just they're putting a lot on his plate. I don't know if he's going to be that guy. At least maybe never, but maybe at least not right now too.
Sure.
Just some of his game is just as a rookie coming in, it's hard to work out those kinks year one. So uh, I think there's going to be some at least early struggles for him, and this Texans defense just ferocious with D'Amico Ryan. So
Yeah, I think Chicago. They were hoping he was going to be that first 4,000 yard passer, and I just don't see it. I like the kid. I hope he does well, but yeah, from a football standpoint, I just don't see it. The footwork that he has, and some of the not everybody's Mahomes,
yeah,
and these some of these guys with the different arm angles and stuff. Sometimes I feel like they kind of get away from what they do well, and and he in college, like he never really showed that he was an elite quarterback because he beat up on bad teams, and then when it came down to big games, he struggled. So I'm kind of hoping it would have been nice to have him walk into a situation where he wasn't the guy
yeah,
week one. He can stay behind somebody, learn a little bit, kind of see what that NFL life is like. And
yeah,
then, he's got great tools. I just think he's got little ways to go. And then, Chicago's never known for great quarterback play.
yeah.
And
That's been a
so,
big part of it too.
that's kind of a struggle too, and I mean, they've had some decent receivers over the years, some decent running game, but I mean, their defense is what's kept them in. That's what got them the win week one. So
That defense is ferocious. And it's funny because my fiance, when the games were starting out, Titans were got actually starting a little hot when they started the game, and
mm-hmm.
she was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like she likes me helping her set her lineup and listen to my advice. And at the time they had like 7.5 points. I'm like, it's still early. This defense, why she has Dallas defense too. So, but I was telling her, I was like, this defense was so good last year.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what was their staple last year was their defense, and so this year I think it's going to be the same thing. The defense is going to keep
Sure.
them in games and competitive, and sure enough, I mean, you get the block punt for a touchdown, pick six, so that defense is really good. But yeah, I do like the Texans defense a lot this week, and another defense I like too is going to be the Colts against Malik Willis and the Packers. Obviously, losing Jordan Love, that's a shell shock to the team.
Yeah.
Malik Willis is really good with the ball in his hands. It's just throwing the ball. I'm not sure he's ready to be an NFL quarterback in terms of throwing yet.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the kid does have tools too. But I just think it's going to be a bit of a struggle, especially with the new team and whatnot. So
Yeah, that's fair. Because that Houston offense, they just keep they got a lot of receiver depth now.
yeah,
Getting Joe Mixon was nice for them, and the Packers defense. I mean, they got carved up by the Eagles. I mean, the Packers were in that game, towards the end. But I know it was last seconds when Love went down, but it was kind of going to be a stretch for them to try to pull that out. But I think they're going to have a tough time without him as quarterback for sure. So, but yeah, I'm kind of I'm going to ride Houston's defense this week. I'm going to take Miami's going to take a breather this week. They did pretty good.
yeah,
Sadly, I lost to my wife, so she was bragging rights and rubbing it in my face this week. So, but now I got to get back to this matchup for week two and hopefully try to get myself to 500 and then work way back to the top.
yep,
So,
yep. So we both made the championship last year. I'm confident we could
yeah,
rebound.
it's early.
Do you have any dark horses going into this week two matchup?
So my number, well, I mean, I guess it's kind of a dark horse, but again, like Mason, no McCaffrey, Mason's the guy.
Yeah,
So to me, that's a no brainer. I do like Houston's defense as we talked about, and an interesting one again is Alan Lazard being reconnected
that
with
is
Aaron
that
Rodgers.
that was a pretty
You
nice
know,
connection. Yeah, for
so
sure.
it's kind of nice to see both of those guys. I mean, I know the Jets didn't win; they didn't look uber great, but Lazard was definitely did his thing and making some big plays against the 49ers, and I thought that was pretty eye opening. So I think that could be another good little nugget for somebody that needs some receiver depth.
Yeah, for sure. If I have a couple of dark horses this week, I mean, I don't know if this one's gonna be a dark horse anymore as well, but J.K. Dobbins against the Panthers. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, dude, that's such a juicy matchup for him. They just got stomped by the Saints. I don't really see them beating Jim Harbaugh, and Harbaugh loves to run the ball. So J.K. Dobbins exploding week one, I think is just stock up in week two against that
Sure.
that poor Panthers team. Another dark horse I like for this week, it's probably going to be, maybe Khalil Shakir or Keon Coleman for the Bills. I feel like, those guys are going to be
Hmm.
the supplement Stephon Diggs loss, guys.
Sure.
So I think those are a couple of nice picks, and yeah, I mean, those are probably my main sleepers. And obviously the defensive I had mentioned as well, Colts and
Yeah.
Texans. So I think those are some solid plays for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think, kind of in looting the dark horses, it's still, I mean, the Saints defense, again, another team that, they got a
Man,
pretty good matchup this week. And that defense and that offense, man, like, what Derek Carr's
what's up with
doing.
Derek Carr? Yeah, he
So,
just
he was dropping bombs to Shaheed, and, Kamara did his thing.
yeah,
And so, yeah, it was kind of nice to see them kind of open the season with a bang.
yeah. I mean, you got Carr, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield just balling out of their mind week one. It was pretty crazy to see. Um, it's funny too. Like the craziest thing I think was the kickers though. Like every kicker just seemed like they popped off for 20 points. It was like,
Not mine. Sadly, McPherson didn't.
I mean, well, you had like Moody, you had uh, Chris Boswell, who I ended up having on my bench. Unfortunately, I had
Mhm.
Dicker the kicker in. He did good too, but then yeah, like Groupie for the Saints, and yeah, dude, like all these kickers, Aubrey
Mhm.
for the Cowboys, they were just going for 20 points, like left and right.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. Um, but yeah, I feel just to kind of wrap up our thoughts, feeling obviously week one wasn't ideal for both of us, but like I said, early on in the fantasy season, it's really just about seeing how your team's shaping up, what guys are going to stick in your lineup consistently, what guys maybe you have to pivot from. Like, I have Jackson Smith and Jigma on my bench. He didn't look too hot week one, but I'm just going to kind of hold him for a bit, see if he played a lot. So it's kind of like a wait and see. And then the nice surprise for me was J.K. Dobbins,
Sure.
with the Chargers. I had a feeling he was going to be a good running back. I mean, he showed talent before, but it was just coming back from that injury, So, but it was a great surprise seeing him. But feeling good going into week two, kind of have an understanding of the matchups, how defenses are looking, and
Mhm.
what's going to be clicking for these teams' offenses going forward. So
Yeah, I do like the JK play. I think, he's definitely probably one that's been overlooked in
yes,
a lot of leagues. I know you snatched him up late in the draft, and that might be a gem that you might have just found
yeah,
because, Eckler leaving, JK stepping in. Again, we talk about health and stay healthy. Should be nice. So, yeah, I agree. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this week. I'm hoping that we come for our next broadcast and we're sitting in the winner's circle for a change.
1-1.
1-1.
That's the hope.
That's the goal. So, but yeah, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care. Enjoy the week.
Bye bye.